Welcome to the Rollwise Podcast, the weekly show that explores all things RPGs. I'm Mike, one of your hosts, and I'm joined by my two good friends, Brent
Hi, everybody.
and Jeff.
Hello.
So this week, we actually took a week off because we were just taking a little bit of a break for ourselves, and Jeff had gone cross-country, driving from here to somewhere very far away in a very short period of time. So we decided that it would be too hard to do any of that podcasting, even though, weirdly enough, none of us are in the same place to begin with. How was your trip, Jeff?
It was good. The driving was tiring.
Yeah.
1,500 miles in 2 days. I recommend you slow down and enjoy the scenery a little more than I did.
That's 1,500 miles in 2 days is not impossible, but I think it's the breakneck pace of it because I mean, if you drive more than 8 hours in a day, and I'm sure you probably had to drive more than 8 hours in a day.
Yeah, it was more like 10 or 11, and it was solo, so that made it a little worse.
Oh yeah.
But hey, at least you were in a part of the country that had a view that you felt you could have slowed down and enjoyed.
Some it was. So I wound up in the Quad Cities in Silvis, Illinois, and so it's all the way across Montana, cut the corner on Wyoming, all the way across South Dakota, drop down all the way across Iowa to the Mississippi, cross the Mississippi, and then you're there.
And the tough part is because we know you did this in 2 days. You didn't really do any of the sightseeing, so you went to South Dakota. Did you see Mount Rushmore? No, I blew on by.
No, I didn't. You know, and 90 doesn't get you close enough to Devil's Tower. Like, I stopped in one of the exits. In Wyoming. That's one of the places where you can get on the road that goes to Devil's Tower. But I've seen both Mount Rushmore and Devil's Tower, and like the Black Hills is always cool.
Sure.
Crossing the Missouri and in South Dakota was kind of neat because you go from flat to like actually some hills there. So that was kind of neat. And then Iowa was flat, and boy, they weren't exaggerating. There's a lot of cornfields. I hate to
a lot of corn.
Push forward a stereotype, but they grow a lot of corn in Iowa.
Well, a lot of corn. A lot of corn in Iowa.
I think the last time I drove through there, what really got me is that it was like, these seeds are provided by Monsanto or whatever. Every 500 feet, you would see like a sign that like you're like, does this mean all of our corn is GMO?
And they tell you the secret batch number. It felt like and I was like, it means nothing to me, but I'm sure. I hope that the farmers got paid to have that sign in front of the crops.
Yeah,
some sort of advertising money.
Yeah, maybe
some sort of offset. I guess I don't know.
Who knows? I just.
But it is pretty. Don't get me wrong, but it is. I can't tell you when we finally I flew back, and it was cloudy, and when we broke through the clouds, and I actually saw mountains. Like, it was just like the peace like descends on you, and it's like, I know that I'm home.
Yeah, it's weird. Yeah, that's a weird Montana feeling. Like when you break them out and you're like, oh, mountains again. Oh, good. I know I'm there. Yeah.
Well, yeah. And just visually, like I mean, being down here in California, like I feel like mountains are very helpful because anytime I get out of the mountains and I head to some place in America where there's not a lot of terrain, I feel weird. At this point, I feel weird. I don't like big open expanses. Like, I look out at the ocean and that's somewhat calming, because you got the wave noise and all that stuff, but a field, like even a field of corn or wheat that's just rustling in the wind is just like something's missing.
Endless Flat is weird. Like, it's weird, and you have that. Yeah, I have weird.
Yeah, the no horizon thing.
I have weird existential moments where I'm like, that's
it's
weird to me.
It's beautiful and oddly disturbing to me. So, but I had fun. I got to see my son and his significant other. I got to meet their puppy for the first time. So
trips worth
that's always a big event. Yeah, no,
it is a big event.
It was good. We had fun.
Good. So, all right. Well, that's enough about Jeff's travel time. If you want to look at his Instagram or
I did not post anything.
So. Oh, never mind. Well, it would have just been you posting snaps of you going down the
I'm
interstate.
telling you, man, I drove that first night. Last thing, I'm driving. I'm in South Dakota. It's finally dark, and it is dark.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, I think I can make it for another 3 or 4 hours. And after an hour, I was like, I am pulling over, and all of the towns in the middle of South Dakota on Interstate 90 are all like they feel like they're all like 5,000 or less people. I'm probably slaughtering that, but they're all small towns, and so there's 1 or 2 motels. But I got off at the next exit and found a hotel because I had hit a wall and I was
out.
Yeah, I think I got a candy bar at the convenience store, and I started watching TV, and I'm like, I'm just going to sleep. I can't do this.
Happens, man. Like, I mean, when my wife and I travel, I drive, and so I've got a lot of driving mileage because she doesn't like driving. So
Yeah.
I feel your pain.
It's good you recognize that instead of trying to drive like tired. Like,
no, exactly.
That can sneak up on you way faster than you think.
Yeah, no, I was like, this is bad. I'm stopping.
Yeah, we don't need you to become a YouTube video of somebody that's dozing off behind the wheel and their rear camera catches you, something like that. So yeah. So about tabletop RPGs, we have probably 4 good topics to touch on today. The first one is there was an announcement, and it was something that probably went kind of under the radar, but now that it's actually seems like it's happening, maybe more officially, or maybe just people picked up on it, is that that Wizards of the Coast is not going to be using Penguin Random House. Is that what it was?
Random House
as their distribution for their game books or anything like that anymore. So we'll touch on that. We're going to talk about some of the games we've been playing or picking up lately. Brent is going to have a long list to share with us, obviously, because he has been attacking Kickstarter.
Brent is the capitalist aide in our group.
He's definitely really trying to keep the industry propped up.
And that's more true than I'm probably comfortable with.
Those of you that had a chance to take a look at our Fabula Ultima actual plays, we have those on a separate playlist. So go ahead and give those a shot. Tell us how we did. What can we do to be better players, game masters? How we could maybe run the system more effectively. But nonetheless, because we've already run it, we're going to give you some of our own thoughts and feelings about how Fabula Ultima plays, what we like about it, what we don't like about it, and then of course we're going to finish this up with what we're going to play next, which is going to be a Delta Green scenario run by Brent. So we have a lot to talk about today. So the first news is actually that Wizards of the Coast is not going to continue their distribution through Random House. Now, I honestly don't know how much of an issue this is going to be, because first and foremost, as many mistakes as that, Wizards of the Coast, Hasbro, whatever you want to say, if it's the parent company or not, has done over the past year, starting with the OGL, or even before that. I mean, they've got issues going back a long time, let's say. I mean, to me, this seems like the only area that I understand that they probably are going to be fine in. Like, this has got to be some sort of calculation that Penguin Random House is not going to impact their bottom line, and they're probably going to go direct, or they have another way to make up that revenue, right? Like,
I think they have. I mean, I think they have 5 or 6 gaming distributors,
smaller distributors
that they go through. Wizards of the Coast, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah. But I think the main concern is, I think by removing Random House, you're taking it out of big booksellers. Like you're not going to see D&D books at Barnes and Noble anymore.
Well, maybe. I mean, you may not be seeing it because of Penguin, or let's call it PRH. I don't know what the hell, Random House, something similar. But I mean, the first thing is that the benefit that D&D has by being in Barnes and Nobles is that casuals people get to see it, right? Because how many people really go, if you're not into the hobby and all that stuff, how often do you really go to your friendly local gaming store? You don't. Like, if you'd never touched a role-playing book or anything like that, you're not going to end up at
right. Exactly. That's what I mean.
Thing. And so now you've seen the D&D movie, you go to Barnes and Nobles, you happen to go by the cafe, you see the D&D books, kind of just off to the side of the cash register, and you're like, oh, well, they're the D&D books. I might be able to pick one of those up and look at it, or at least peruse it, right?
Yeah.
But I mean,
or you watch Stranger Things and you're like, oh,
yeah,
these are books. I would go to a bookstore. But that also includes them. I wonder if that also includes the novelizations, though.
No, my understanding was the novelizations will still be distributed. It's the gaming books specifically.
Just the gaming books?
But not, take that with a grain of salt. I read a couple of articles because it interests me a little bit, having formerly owned, co-owned a game store. I know that a lot of retailers really liked Penguin Random House. They like dealing with them. They liked the return policies and things like that. I don't know what kind of deals Hasbro has in existence with places like Target and Barnes and Noble, since there's only so many book chains left. Like,
That's true. There aren't that many book chains left either, really.
So it probably doesn't eliminate them from there. I mean, I think that's something to be concerned about, because it is another source, but it probably doesn't eliminate them, but it does probably make them a little bit harder to get. I know, I've never run something as big as a Barnes and Noble, but you tend to order from your smaller distributors less frequently than you do your main distributors. You know what like with Diamond Comics, right? With Diamond Publishing, we were ordering comics every week because new comics came out every week. But some of the other distributors, we were ordering once a month or once every other month or something like that. So availability certainly probably is impacted to a degree. And I don't know how that ties in with Wizards' digitization of their role-playing product line, which seems to be slowly coming.
Yeah, well, I think this is the warning shot for that. I think moving to digital distribution and direct distribution.
So I guess the question becomes, is that when I was looking online, I mean, it seems as though people were ready to put this memo that, and I think that the actual article that I read that was more than just like, a blurb on Reddit or something like that, came from Gizmodo. And the article was very basic, right? It just basically said Random House was no longer going to be distributing books through, bookstores and all that kind of stuff. And I think the problem that Hasbro and Wizards have, by extension, is the fact that they've had so many bad things happen kind of sequentially, that all of the like doomsday naysayers that like have kind of, I don't want to say they wish D&D would fail, because I mean that feels like a little bit harsh, but I feel like they're willing to take everything in the most negative light possible. So this was just another thing in a string of bad occurrences for them to say like, oh, this is the next bad move by Wizards of the Coast or something like that. And I don't think it's going to be that. Do you guys?
I think there'll probably be an impact. I don't think it's going to be as noticeable as people. I think you're right. I think there's a lot of doomsaying. Mostly because Wizards of the Coast has made a lot of steps recently, at least perceived missteps by certain people.
They've done some boneheaded stuff.
But they've been doing boneheaded stuff for the past few years fairly regularly, and it seems like at least it seems like it hasn't tripped them up enough so that the brand is at risk.
It's good to own the most recognizable brand on the block. That's all I'm going to say.
Yeah.
Sorry, Brent, you were saying.
No, I don't know that I just don't know what it's going to impact. But I do think that I think the most important part to take from this is I think it is kind of the herald's horn of moving it towards digital distribution and not being too concerned with distribution through booksellers.
Maybe. Yeah, it does always make me wonder, because when we talked about, when we were actually covering Wizards / Hasbro's type news so many months ago, before we just kind of like said, I'm tired of all this drama. We had talked about how they really had a very aggressive strategy to make D&D much more of a, merchandising and all that kind of stuff. And it does make me wonder if this is going to be one of those things where they cut out the middleman so that they get a better margin on all that stuff. Because maybe what happens is they say, okay, well, we've eliminated Penguin Random House, but we're still getting in Barnes and Noble, but now we actually get merchandising that we're going to set up directly with them and all those things. You know what I'm saying? So like,
that's possible.
Where I used to work, we had distributors that, would sell our products. And then of course we had direct sales in certain larger stores. And we would have, when we went to those bigger stores, we would have full control of how that merchandising was set up. kind of like collaboratively with the store to make sure that it wasn't, we weren't going where we weren't supposed to. But,
so you heard it here first, folks. Mike is suggesting that there's going to be Wizards of the Coast stores coming to every big city.
No, not
for
Wizards
direct
of the Coast
sales.
I'm saying
I'm
there
kidding.
might be a sales
branded
person.
displays within the stores.
Exactly, because right now, I mean, when you go into like Barnes and Noble, the last time I was there, it was basically there was like a role playing section, and there were just books kind of like stacked together with whatever role playing stuff there was. And then, of course, I think I want to say I think they might have had some other like accessory type things, so like some kind of tangential stuff. But
last time I was in a Barnes and Nobles, they had a big section of D&D, and they had a big marketing corner, like with all the dice and plushies.
Yeah, but it was like, it was role playing. It wasn't like
it was D&D. And last time I was in a Barnes and Noble, it was a D&D like nook, advertising nook, with all the D&D specific like plushies and shit. Because they're the company they're the only company. They're the company that pushes that stuff the most. Like, buy our Mind Flyer plushie.
How do you not have a Mind Flayer plushie, Brent?
After
it looks like there's room on the shelf right over your shoulder.
Maybe someday.
Yeah, I mean, we pretty much can see it like fitting right in there. So,
because I don't buy Wizards products anymore.
Oh well, okay. Then get a non-branded something or other thing.
Well, it is funny. As I told Brent the other day, because I was playing Final Fantasy 1, apparently Mind Flayers are in Final Fantasy 1.
Yeah.
I forgot that to you.
Because I had just played through the game, like I'd had it in my Steam library and I decided to play through it quickly. I don't know what that means in this particular thing because we've been playing so much Fabula Ultima. But I got like 10 hours in and I'm sitting there fighting Mind Flayers and I'm like, wait, how is this happening again? This is before copyright stuff got really serious about that.
I don't know. Role-playing stuff is weird. I'll get back to that later when we talk about the games that I bought recently. But like role-playing rules seem strange to me on what people can use and what they can't. Still, so this, it's very confusing to me.
To this day, because Mind Flayers definitely are a D&D thing. But they were in my Final Fantasy game, so...
And no Pinkertons showed it up at anybody's house that we know of.
Right.
So...
This is the 80s. Who knows?
The Pinkertons were still around in the 80s, Mike.
But I wasn't really thinking about it back then, so I don't know. I missed that article. And I don't have microfiche readers here to go back in time to see those either.
Yeah, and the internet wasn't big enough to cover that news. If they showed up some Final Fantasy Japanese producer's house, the Pinkertons went overseas.
And then I think we could get off this topic before we start talking about the things they made them do. Okay, so let's move into the next topic because you had basically said it yourself, Brent. You'd been purchasing a lot of stuff. Now I know I've picked up some stuff recently, and it sounds like you have picked up some stuff. And I know Jeff may have not been too busy to pick up some stuff since the last time.
I have not actually.
What did you pick up,
me?
Mike? Yeah.
So I actually picked up two things. I picked up, and I was thinking about buying that squishy rule set because it's just a super basic thing for Halloween. But I picked up Skatewizards. Actually, three things. I picked up Skatewizards, which was weird OSR skate gnarly magic thing going on there, which is kind of funny because as I read through the rules are very OSR and very much very light. But there are some funny this is a steezy role-playing game, and you get spells that you create that are like, I have a dope bewildering dust bread, and then you and the game master get to figure out what the fuck that means for a spell. So it's kind of funny, and I picked it up at a friend's suggestion because he wanted to try something that was just a little outside the norm. I picked up a game
that's a lot outside the norm.
It's definitely not something I'm not really part of skater culture, so some of that stuff I think is probably a little lost on me, but I feel like if you were deeper into the lore of skater culture and all that kind of stuff, it would be much more funny. But then at the same time, it also has really good art. The art, because it was a collaboration between a game designer and an artist, and the artist is a very unique style that they did for that.
Nice.
I picked up Forge. Apparently, there's a guy on Itch. What the fuck is his name? His name is. Well, he goes by Zap Forge. think he has real names somewhere. But basically, it's a free OSR type game. It's fantasy open role playing game engine. It was originally based on Knave, but then they had gone through an entire overhaul to really refine everything like that. It's pay what you want right now on itch. Just go to zap-forge.itch.io/forge, and you can pick up a copy for yourself. And I mean, if you want to pay money, I would definitely suggest putting something in the tip jar for the person, because they like paying $0 for this game seems incredibly weird because it's very polished for what it is. So I would not feel weird. I mean, it's only 60 pages, but then there's all these extras and stuff that he's done for it too. So it looks like it's pretty solid. I'm going to take a look at it. It offers both group play and solo play. I've got that on my reading list. And then last, I picked up the introductory starter set for Star Trek Adventures. Is that some of the stuff that people also mentioned that they wanted to play? So I was going to read through that and see if a non-Star Trekky person can get into the Star Trek game. I did watch all of that latest Star Trek stuff. The hell is that called?
Discovery.
I did watch Discovery, and before I alienate all the people out there, I didn't like Discovery's later season, so I'm sorry, but I did like Strange New Worlds. Is that what it's called?
Oh yeah,
the anime.
It's
that's the
Captain
Pike
one.
one.
It's the most throwbacky one. It's the most like the original series. You should just queue up the 75 episodes of the original series and watch them. I'm sure you can find them somewhere online.
I tried. So this is two things that have happened with Star Trek. Is first of all, I tried to watch Star Trek some years ago when the Next Generation, or when the original series, they call it TOS, like the original series.
TOS, the original.
It's the Next Generation.
Or there's TNG.
Yeah.
TNG is the Next Generation. Yeah. TOS was the original series.
So regardless of the nomenclature, I tried to get into it. And I started watching the first episode, and it just wasn't for me. And I apologize to all the Trek fans that may or may not get clued into this, but I will try to. I try every so often to watch it, and they just had released a remastered version of Star Trek 1, and I was kind of excited because I thought that was a good one, and it put my wife to sleep.
The first movie is synonymously the worst of them. Like everybody hates it because it's the least.
There's cool parts of it. There's cool nostalgic parts, like them getting back together. But the middle really drags.
Yeah. I really like it. I haven't watched it in a long time though, but I like the first movie. But a lot of people and a lot of Star Trek fans don't like the first movie because they kind of sucked all the series' charm out of it.
Well, isn't it like every other? Isn't it like every other movie is the good movie in the Star Trek, like 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 or something?
I think 2 and 3 are both good because that's like Wrath of Khan and Return of Spock. Both of those are supposed to be good.
Okay.
4, I can't remember which one it is.
Is 4 the whale one?
I think 4 is I think that's the Voyage Home. Which is I think that's good too.
That one has its moments.
And then the fifth one
like 4.
is the one with Spock's brother, which has some moments in it that I absolutely love.
So basically, what you're saying is 1 is the worst.
1 is the one everybody doesn't like because it's not very Star Trekky, and I like 1, but it's definitely different.
Yeah, the pacing is odd. I was at a basketball camp, right? And we had like a pizza night in the middle of basketball camp, and they got us a movie, and it was that, and everybody was surprisingly hyped, like because we had been playing basketball like 8 hours a day. You know what I mean? Too tired, when you go to bed to even talk, and we get to do this, and man, I think it made everybody fall asleep. Like it was
that because we got to that part where they started getting into the cloud and just how slow and methodical their approach was, and I'm sitting there going, and the music is just kind of like that dun dun, just kind of really monotonous.
No,
the wife was just like,
I think I have issues with it, and I really like Star Trek. Like I'll watch it, but I can't. It is what it is. It is what it is, man.
Yeah, so 2 is the Wrath of Khan, which is everybody loves.
Mhm.
3 is the Search for Spock, which again people really like. The Voyage Home is the whale one. People love that one. The Final Frontier is the other good one. With like I said, one of the characters in it is Spock's brother. Undiscovered Country, I don't think was very good. I don't think many people liked Undiscovered Country very much.
I think that was my first real Star Trek film when I watched it back in the day. Like I think that was my introduction.
Generations isn't very good. People don't like that one very much. That's the crossover where with Picard and Shatner. First Contact is really good.
Because that's the Borg one, right?
Yeah, that's the Borg one. Insurrection is not very good, and then Nemesis is not very good.
And then we get the J.J. Abrams,
and then
stuff
you get the J.J. Abrams movies, which are all kind of a different timeline now.
They got to break it without really hurting original canon.
Right. It's like it's like a different timeline now.
So without any spoilers, let's just say that my wife didn't make it to the movie, and I wasn't too far behind, unfortunately, because I was like, okay, let's go ahead and stop this. But yeah, those are the 3 games that I picked up. I'm really excited to try Star Trek Adventures just to see if I can run that type of game with a small number of crew on an away team or whatever the hell you do in the game. Haven't read it yet, so I don't actually know what you do in the game. But I'm sure it's Star Trek-y stuff.
It is.
So
Probably.
those are the three games I picked up. Brent, how are you supporting the game industry?
So I picked up a bunch of games. Actually, I've been looking at games and trying to decide what I want. I backed Cohorts Cthulhu, which is the Modifius Cthulhu 2D20 Roman Cthulhu game, which I was pretty excited.
You can get the quick start on that, right? If you
get the quick start on that. Yep. Mm-hmm. You get the quick start on that, which we'll play at some point. Okay. I have to read it. I keep getting distracted by other games. So I got that. So I backed that. Eat the Reich also funded. So that's out there.
Well, I mean that was essentially funded in the first day or so, right?
Like, yeah, but it's over.
But it's
now.
Officially, it's
officially over.
Okay.
I bought. So what I was talking about earlier and why I was saying that I don't understand like copyright in the gaming industry is I bought a game called Wet Wired. Which
it's a good one.
Is Shadowrun like it's Shadowrun with a different rule set. Like they have Shadowrun names for things in it. Like they have a street shaman and a physical adept and a decker.
No. They're just 2 words that happen to be close enough to each other.
No, they're the same words. The only ones that are different is instead of Street Samurai, they have Techno Ronin, because I think FASA owns Street Samurai. I think they do have that trademarked, but it is weird because it is. I was like reading it and I was like, this is Shadowrun. Like, so I was very surprised. Of course, it doesn't have a really background in it, because they're like wink, wink, nod, nod. Go play your physical adept and your wizard. So that weirds me out in the gaming industry. So I got Wet Wired. I bought a copy of Heart, The City Beneath, which is by the same company as that is doing Eat the Reich. So I wanted to check out some of their other books. Heart is really cool. I got it today and I've been leafing through it. Like the art is amazing in it. And then the game itself seems very, very kind of crazy dungeon delver cool to me.
Well, I think Spire and Heart are both really well regarded. It's just that I haven't had a chance to really get in there and play them or anything like that.
Heart won 7 ENnie awards.
That's
really?
Yeah.
Wow.
So Heart and Spire, which are related games. Spire is the tower above. Heart is the
City
dungeons. Below. Yeah, the cities below. Which they're very cool. Like the worlds that they've built and the little that I've read seem very, very interesting to me. So I'm waiting for my copy. I have Spire on PDF. Like I bought it on PDF, and I'm waiting for the book to come in. So I'll read that. But they're really neat, really well done. Very, very pretty books all together. What else did I pick up? I'm sure I picked up something else in there. Oh, I supported the Night Clerk, Ross Payton's
agnostic
adventures that he wrote. I supported that as well. which was a lot of fun. I think that'll be a lot of fun. We'll see. I'm sure he'll fund. I did not support the Magnus Archives, which made a ridiculous amount of money. On their Kickstarter.
Yeah, I think. Well, I mean, I didn't support it. I kind of feel like I probably should have, but at the end of the day, I'm probably going to end up playing it. We did have somebody mention to us in our comments that because it looks like really the only experience we have is like with early Magnus Archives.
Mhm.
It seems as though if you get later into the seasons, it really lends itself well to that investigatory horror role playing. They didn't want to say anymore because they didn't want to spoil it for any of us, but it does give me some incentive to go listen to some more of the Magnus Archives and see how it does kind of evolve over the seasons and see what it turns into. And I'll probably end up picking it up later when it comes.
Yeah, they definitely hit all their stretch goals.
Yeah, like a lot.
Just for the record, what did they asked for $100,000? That was what I think their goal was, and I believe they made over $2 million on the Kickstarter.
Wow, good for them.
Yeah, which is a lot.
Well, and I have to say, like, based on what I've seen for some of the publishers to kind of come out and do stuff, like there was that guy who runs D&D shorts. His kaiju book hit 2 million on Kickstarter, just blew up.
He hit 2 million on Kick. That's amazing.
Yeah, like I think I saw like I mean, unless I'm misremembering, I think he blew, like his game blew up like on Kickstarter. It was
I'm not surprised. Like, I mean, I'm surprised because 2 million is one of those numbers that like it fits in my head poorly. Like, that's a lot of dollars. But I'm not surprised they made all that money because it's Monte Cook Games, which is a big reputable game company. And then there's all the Magnus Archive fans who probably went and supported it just because they're fans of the show.
Yeah, no, but it's actually called Ryoko's Guide to the Yokai Realms, a 5e tome. He hit 2.1 million. He has 6 days to go, and like I can't imagine that. I mean, that's just got to be so humbling to just have that kind of output.
The fact that he hit $2 million without the backing of a company like Monte Cook Games, that surprises me though. Like, there's a lot of people that have faith in his.
Yeah, I think he's with a group, if that makes sense. I don't know exactly how his organization and all that stuff, but I think if you join his Patreon, they have like monthly releases on stuff. Like
I'm just surprised. Because the reason that Monte Cook Games hit that much is because like if you back a Monte Cook product or a Modifius product, like you probably are going to get it. Mm-hmm. But like other companies that aren't as well established, like there's no guarantee.
I don't know. On TikTok and YouTube, D&D Shorts is pretty
but I mean, high. Look at the Orpheus Protocol, which I backed in 2020. And I still haven't got my hard copy of that. Not because it's not coming, but just because a small publisher, it's not easy, especially, and there was COVID, but it's not easy like producing all that stuff yourself. So he must have a big team behind him, which is cool too. Yeah.
Or, maybe I have to get some tips when we publish something ourselves. Who knows? We definitely need you this is to the audience, to like, subscribe, and look out for future content, because who knows? That may be our trajectory at some point. Definitely not today. We're going to continue focusing on playing games, talking about games, and having fun. So Brent, that is quite the contributions to the gaming industry. Hats off.
I like books.
But you know what? And the worst part about it is, even if books only end up as like art pieces and something like you hit the nail on the head. Some of the times, even if you don't ever actually play like Spire or Heart, like the artwork that they have for it is really good. Another book I saw that kind of reminds me of that is, I don't know if I'd ever have a situation in which we'd play a game called Slayers, but it was by this guy who I saw this rule set. It's called Lumens or something like that. And he made this other book, and I just looked at it and I was like, I really love the art for this. And I kind of, as I was reading it, I'm like, I don't know if I could ever convince everybody. Like, I feel like our gaming group would be like, knock it off with buying random ass weird games and bringing them to the table. We want to just focus for a little bit.
Well, I think that's one of the cool things about the podcast is we can do weird random.
Exactly. We can try a lot of stuff.
Yeah,
we can. And so that's good. So speaking of trying stuff and talking about it, I think it's time to switch gears. Fabula Ultima wrap up. As everybody knows, we played an actual play. We played 5 sessions. I kind of shoehorned a wrap up in there because it kind of went longer than I expected. But I think it was satisfactory considering that I usually think in either very small, like very, very small. And I wasn't thinking that way this time. I had basically kind of given myself license to get a little bit grand and epic because we had spent all the time building a world. I felt like getting a 1 or 2 sessions out of all that creative juice felt a little miserly, I guess. So we got 5 sessions.
We got to explore parts of the world. There's still obviously a lot of it left, and I wouldn't mind revisiting it sometime.
Yeah. But we put a lot of work into it to just get one or 2 sessions out of it, let's say.
Yeah.
So I guess what we can say is that we have 2 different perspectives. Obviously, me as the game master, I'm going to have my own perspective, and you guys as players are going to have your perspectives. So start with what you like. Did you have a particular area of the game that you liked above what else you played that in recent memory? Who wants to go first?
Well, what I liked about it was I did like how simple the rules were to remember. Like the fact was like stat plus stat and roll your dice. The target's usually 10. Like that's super easy. Like I liked how easy the dice mechanics were. I like the world building, though. I think the world building I think you could use a little bit more direction in some areas. And then the other thing, that's the things that I liked. I'll throw those out there. I think. Okay. Oh, one of the things I really liked is starting at level 5 and kind of mixing the classes, because I feel like you can get a lot of variation in what people are playing, and I think that's very cool. You can very much customize what you want to do in the game, and I think that's very cool.
No, I mean, honestly, you ticked a lot of the boxes I had there, Brent, because like the world building customization. Honestly, I mean, I know that in the beginning it was kind of like, well, how much effort are we going to put into this? And we put in a lot of effort and created something that, may have been a little bit tropey. People may have seen something similar somewhere else, but I think we had enough fun and made it our own. I mean, how many ideas are there really left in the
You're going to have tropey in any world building thing, because gamers are going to build off of things that they love.
Well, and it kind of prevented you from having to read deep lore. Like I didn't have to be like, well, here's the Book of the Sword Coast, read up so that you can travel from, Baldur's Gate to Tribor, and then if you don't read about it, then you're just gonna have to learn as you go.
Yeah, I thought it struck a decent balance though between. Obviously, there wasn't a ton of depth because this was a world that we just made up, but it did force us to spend a little bit of time, and maybe we went a little deeper than some people would. But I certainly don't think you'd be hurt by spending a little less time on the world building and letting the game, build as you do it. But I don't know. I enjoyed that part.
I think I'll put a pin in this because it's going to it'll go into the parts that I think are opportunities on this.
Okay.
That probably need a little bit to explore. But I guess a couple of things that I did enjoy about this, and it's kind of a double-edged sword here, is I did like getting introduced to the ideas of clocks and conflicts. Now, those people out there, they're going to be like, oh, well, Blades in the Dark did clocks, or whatever, some other game did clocks. I don't care. I haven't met it until now, and so I appreciate getting introduced to the idea of it. So regardless of where it initiated, I did like the concept, and I felt it fit in this game pretty well. The fact that you could have conflicts, kind of a few different ways conflicts could resolve themselves was really very helpful. And the fact that, we didn't really get into that kind of thing, but you guys could say like, oh, well, we want to have a conflict that's resolved through a clock because what we're going to try to do is we're going to try to, shoot their sails off their ship or something like that. Okay, well, I'm going to put up a 4 o'clock here, and there are 4 ropes that you need to hit effectively to knock their sails off. Right. You know what I'm saying? And so you can create different resolution outcomes than just say, I attack mob A and that's it. The other thing I liked is I kind of like the GM scenes and prologues. I'm not in love with those, but I think it just gives me something to kind of play with in terms of how to advance story and everything like that. Prologues were fun. I definitely think that going forward, if we play campaign style and not just one shot, I'm probably going to involve prologues as much as I can, because I like people getting a chance to sit in their character's skin a little bit and kind of get used to it before they get around the table. Because I do feel like there are situations in which people have an idea of their character, they show up at the table, and then you have strong personalities that kind of steal the spotlight for so long that you kind of lose sight of what your character is, and you never really got a chance to play them. So I do like that concept. So Jeff, what about you? What did you have that was in there?
You guys have hit on a lot of it. I like starting at level 5 and having all of the different tropes that you could mix and match. Really kind of gave you a real blank slate. If you had a very definite idea of what kind of character you wanted to play, you could kind of go a couple of levels here and a couple of levels here, and I have something that's moving in that direction, which I thought was kind of neat. Starting at level 5 and this being, more cinematic, more video gamey, like I actually felt like we were relatively powerful, like not overpowered, but certainly felt like we could stand up to some things, you know what I mean? As opposed to, oh, I can't do that, I got to run away.
When we used them, we definitely had abilities that I felt worked on the gaming world.
Yes,
I agree.
Yeah, and I have a follow up on that, but I'll wait till we get to the next part.
Sure.
But I liked the cinematic. I felt like sometimes maybe I wasn't as familiar playing, that way. I feel like I feel like there's a part of my brain that drops back into that grindy, dice checking, crunchy rule systems kind of play style, as opposed to I can kind of do anything I want and let's, give it a shot. And so I like that was there. And the few times that I took advantage of that, I thought it felt really dynamic.
Yeah.
If that's the right word. So I enjoyed that when I did it. When I didn't do it, then it was bad player, Remember which game you're playing.
Well, and to build off that, what's kind of interesting about it, and this is kind of one area that I kind of have a plus and a negative in, is that, as you kind of familiarize yourself with the game and you familiarize yourself with the classes and the rules and stuff like that, you can end up with really interesting combats. And I think I mentioned that with the clocks, that it has different ways to solve it. But you can also end up with cool combinations of things that you can do. And Jeff, you even saw it last night a little bit, where one of our players on our other table was just like, oh, well, how do I get this to basically do this? And that's like, well, that combo is really powerful for the Dark Blade, but there's really only 2 ways that you can develop bonds. One is through the skill and one is through a critical. And he's like, oh, I didn't take the skill. So now he has to wait 2 sessions to basically take that skill, because he just takes another level in Dark Blade. And then it allows him to basically build a combo that he can use, like his own personal combo that he can use. But then there's also combos that can be used between, the other PCs and stuff like that can make a battle very, very engaging in terms of what you do to, beat up the bad guy and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
So I think that's kind of cool. We haven't really explored it yet because all the characters are fairly low level, because they're kind of in that introductory stage still. But I think that there's a lot of potential to create some gnarly things.
There is an understanding. I mean, I think we all kind of took what the recommended skills. I think we could have branched out a little bit and made them our own a little bit more, but we'll have the opportunity to do that, because you do level up rather quickly. You do accumulate power, and you do get to make changes. I mean, we've all played in campaigns of stuff where it felt like you were the same level for 20 sessions, and yes, you really get to know your character at that state, but the growth doesn't ever seem to happen sometimes in some systems. And in this one, I even felt that in ours when we only leveled up once, right? So it's an interesting system that I would like to spend more time in. I think that's the best thing I can say about it. Not like, oh, that was nice, that was fun, but no, I've had enough. I couldn't possibly.
Well, fortunately, we get to continue a game in our other table, so we do get to play it a little bit more, and we'll see how long that campaign goes. I have plans for a few different things, but switching gears, like, what are the things that that stood out to you that you didn't necessarily like about the system? Does anybody have anything that they felt strongly about on that so far?
I don't have anything I feel strongly about other than it's not a one-shot game. Like if you have players and you go through building a world, definitely don't plan on just doing a one-shot, because you're going to invest too much time into it to only want to do a short game. Unless the GM has like one that they've already pre-generated. You know, like if you wanted to do one shot in the world that we made already, like that's something. But
Yeah,
if you're taking 3 or 4 players and you're making a world, they're going to be invested and you're going to want to do a longer game. So if you're not ready for that, it's definitely not a starter game. Because if you're not ready for that, it's going to be hard.
And I think it may be as appropriate to say is that you could do a series of one shots in that world that you build.
Right.
But like don't just plan on doing like one game and being done.
But I mean, a series of one shots is a campaign, in my opinion. Like anytime you're in the same world, and
yeah, even if we're switching characters, I still think it's more campaign like.
Yeah,
it's the same setting.
Yeah,
so episodic is still
campaigning.
A campaign to me. So yeah, I think that's the thing. If you're like going to do one and done, either just sit down and make a world yourself, Mr. GM, or because I think your players are going to struggle with like, because what makes the game is the familiarity with the world and building it around, what you've discussed. So
yeah, and I think it's kind of a neat component of it that goes kind of to waste, because there is no default setting in Fabula Ultima. There's not like there's not like, oh well, we can just lean on Faerun from D&D or Forgotten, one of those kind of pre-generated things that everyone kind of has a sense or knowledge about. That doesn't exist. What else you guys got? Jeff, do you have anything that stood out to you as like a moment for the game?
I kind of touched on it. If you haven't played a system like this that's more storytelling based, less rules focused, more bigger cinematic type action that should be happening, if you haven't played that, you're going to struggle to feel it because you're not going to be making the right decisions as a player. And that's a learning curve thing. So it's not necessarily a fault of the system, but if you haven't played a lot of those types of games, you'll be limiting yourself without knowing it, because you'll be making basic decisions using basic attacks, not thinking like, what are the possibilities? You know what I mean? Like I built the box around myself a couple of times, but the system is there to be cooler. And it's not the system's fault, but if you're not familiar with it, I think you'll struggle, because I did. And
this is one of those things that I talk about, kind of the mindset where the D&D locks you in. This is one of those things where, like, D&D is very specific on what you are doing when you roll the dice. Like, you are making a basic attack. It is, a 6-second combat, whatever. And I think, and that's why I tell people, that's one of the reasons why I always say, like, D&D encourages a certain type of mindset when you play, whether it's twinking your character out to be the best at combat or whatever, because combat is going to happen in D&D. Like, it's going to be a thing that you do and you want to be good at it or whatever. Or even that, where it's like, okay, I roll my dice. Okay, I hit him. Or I roll my dice. Do I beat his AC? Do I hit him? And like, that's the mindset that you fall into. Whereas there's a lot of other games that, like, no, roll the dice once. Okay, tell me what you're doing, and that's going to impact. Like Fate, I think, is a big one. Where it's like, how can you use your character's motivations and things, or what they have listed as skills? How can you use those to make you better at what you're doing? And I think Fabula Ultima is more one of those games. It's a permissive game where it's like, I want to fly across the boat and hit him with my steer.
Exactly. You have to fill in some blanks that I wasn't used to filling in. Right. And if you don't, I think you are let down a little bit and again, the problem isn't the game. The problem is in my case.
Well, and it's easy, and you can play the game that way. Like,
you can.
There's definitely abilities that you can take. Like my weapon, like the weapon master feat, where it's like, I'm just better at hitting things. Like, that's not as interesting as, say, the counterattack ability, which I probably should have described better. But like your character is a flurry of whatever now. Like your character gets his offensive attack and his defensive attack pretty much almost every round if they roll an even. And that should be probably described more as that sort of like wushu, defensive. I stick him, I dodge back, wait for his attack, and I, dodge back in, that sort of thing. And I think that's and there's other even more kind of like if you look at the spells, I think there's a lot of really cool stuff within the spells. So that's another thing is like it's that mindset thing again where it's like I took a weapon master to be better at hitting things, and so my character was better at hitting things. But for a game where like what you're doing can be so much more impressive than that, maybe that shouldn't be just hitting things better maybe shouldn't be your focus.
Yeah. And honestly, I do feel like combat suffers a little bit from that. And I have to agree, myself I included, I have to get out of the D&D mindset. It's like, because each person, and this is I think maybe a strength and a weakness, is that I think you could have really fun combat encounters in Fabula Ultima. Even your normal random-ish encounters, which really encounters are supposed to serve a purpose, and they don't, and the book doesn't really encourage you just like run into things on accidentally, if that makes sense. Like, which is kind of anti-JRPG, because I feel like every time I play a JRPG, running into random encounters is like all I do.
Well, you can't take two steps in some of those games.
That's the entire game.
And when you're grinding for something that they drop, you need that because when it's a less than 1% drop chance, you've got to do a lot of battles.
I told you, we just did a good job avoiding the tall grass.
Exactly. So I mean, I think that the fact that it's kind of like every combat should have like a little bit of meaning to it is something that's interesting, because like, having a random encounter just to have a random encounter really isn't something they do. And then also dungeon delving seems to be something that's not encouraged unless it has a certain number of points. And they actually say in the book, like, don't do a dungeon unless you're going to like exhaust their resources. You're going to find some knowledge. You want them to have something. Like, it's got to have a reason for being there. You don't just like, how in OSR games you go like, I enter this hex. Well, what's on the hex? Oh, you find ancient ruins. You find a secret passageway into the labyrinth of the mad goblin
skeleton.
Right. Yeah.
You just roll dice until you come up with this really random esoteric thing, because it's all on these different charts and tables and stuff. And since it's not really encouraged in that kind of play, it feels like when you get into combat, if the combat isn't well designed, like if you just try to throw something together, like you probably will have a combat that will probably end up boring, in all honesty. And I feel like the hit points, how do I say it? I feel like the hit points are probably a little bit like they felt a little high for some creatures. Like they felt a little soaky. Like like certain creatures you go through really fast, and other creatures that felt like, oh, well, this combat lasted like just a little bit longer than I wanted to. And so it's like you just kind of go, okay, set the hit points to 1, next person to kill him, next person to hit kill him. And I hate to do that. I'd like it to be a little bit more purposeful, but I did feel like it was harder from like that perspective to hit that sweet spot where the combat felt super engaging in that.
Well, that's always I think any game, that's usually going to be the hardest part, is like what, because I mean, here's the thing. I was playing a narrative game with a friend once, and he's like, well, yeah, you could make a combat character and he'll be really good at combat, but that's not the purpose of the game, really. So he's going to be really good at combat, but you might be bored doing everything and doing the other 75% of the game.
Yeah.
And I think Fabula Ultima is a game that could really suffer from that potentially. Is like, I am really good at hitting things in combat. Any of the other cool shit that people can do, I don't do at all.
Yeah. And I think that the type of game that it tends to lend to is less like because I mean, the weird part is you spend all this time developing this world and then you have a hard time kind of exploring it. Like, unless it's part of the grand storyline that you like your crafted villains and stuff like that.
Well, you're kind of build the thing is you built a meta plot sort of. When you build a world, like the way that they want you to build the world is you've sort of built a meta plot.
Yeah, because you add those threats to it,
Yep.
and these are the things that you get to solve. Like you don't like, and so it's not like you go, okay, well, let's just say we look at our Wednesday game. Okay, well, you guys are randomly running around. Like it feels I'm less incentivized to just be like, oh, you guys, as you're exploring this area, you do find a place to hide, and again, you find the Goblin Dungeon of the Mad Cook. Like I feel less incentivized to do that because it doesn't really lead into the plot.
Yeah, this is a problem that I had with a lot of gaming, like bigger gaming companies from the 90s. Like all of them had this weird meta plot, like Vampire and Werewolf and all those. They had this weird meta plot, and it's like you kind of feel like if you're not playing a game towards that meta plot, what are you doing? And I can see
it's not like it doesn't exist, even if you're not interacting with it.
Right.
It's still there, and some or all of the players and the GM are aware that it exists, right? Because you're either engaging with it, purposely not engaging with it, or touching on it infrequently.
Yeah, and you've built that. Like you've built your game towards that meta plot.
Exactly.
So
well,
it's very much designed to follow that meta plot. That's how it feels to me. Not that you can't, we all break the rules.
It's hard to deviate, though. It's hard to we're going to go do this other thing. Like in the most recent game, it's a little hard to say we need to go do this other thing when the world's at jeopardy. We need to go fight that Goblin Cook guy.
I want to know more about the Goblin Cook.
It's like it would be like in an MMO if you have a main quest line and there's a timer on the main quest line.
Yeah.
Like you're going to get side quests, but are you going to be incentivized to do them if you have to get this other quest done in an hour? Probably not.
Yeah, and it feels like, and there are times in which those kind of side quests and stuff can probably take place. Obviously, we've really only played through the meta plot, but I think the GM scenes kind of help poke and prod at the players. And obviously, Jeff knows that. Like last night, I introduced the DM scene that talks about a certain thing that's going to happen. Like how can I impress upon the characters, that they have something is nipping at their feet, kind of thing, right? Like they're being chased. Well, right now they didn't have the impression that they were getting chased because they thought they kind of made it out of the valley,
Yeah, we still think we're home free.
But like now you guys as players know that may not be the case because of my GM scene that I introduced last night, kind of thing. So I mean, I
guess what I would say. Sorry to interrupt you, but I guess what I would say as far as Fabula Ultima is concerned is, like, if you want to run a sandbox game, you probably should not do the entire world creation process at the beginning of a Fabula Ultima game. If you want a very much more directed meta plot style game where like you're going to have the characters discuss what they're doing, where they're going, what the idea is, then you can go through the whole thing. I guess that's what I'm trying to say is like you're going to get a game at the beginning of a Fabula Ultima game that's like you're a party of seekers who are seeking this object. If you want them to like be explorers, then that's probably what you should set in the game is like you're explorers searching this world that we're going to build together.
So I think that's I think that highlights some of the main issues that I have. And am I having fun playing it? Hell yeah, I'm having a great time.
It's a fun game.
Like
it's a fun game.
I had a lot of fun.
Yeah, and I think it's a good time. I obviously need to learn how to edit myself a little bit, but whatever. Because otherwise,
I think anybody that looks back at our previous episodes and looks at the times that these things run, I think they will go, "Oh no, editing seems something like they're strong at."
I think all artists struggle at editing the things that they love. That's what I will say on it.
So if you haven't gone out and purchased it, go buy the damn game. It has beautiful art at the very least, and if you can find a group that plays it well, it's a fun time. And I think you can have fun playing many of these well put together games. It's just that it's a different type of game than D&D, so you might have to untrain.
Even if they play it not well, I think you'll probably have fun. So
yeah, have fun. I mean, you'll probably have your own fun.
Yes.
So with that being said, that's our final say is that thumbs up, buy the game. And if you want to talk about it, hit us in the comments. We'll continue to share our thoughts and feels as we go through the next few episodes.
And we do try to answer all the comments. I think we've
we
been
do.
pretty good at that. So
except if you have like some search engine optimization stuff, SEO sales, don't hit us up. We're obviously not ready for SEO.
Yeah, that's true. I guess
I feel like we could brush up on our emoji interpretation as well.
Yeah, like hit us with words, not with emojis, because
maybe we should. That would be fun. We should just start asking questions. What does your emoji mean? We will be the over 90 podcast then.
Yes. We hit geriatric faster than you could say hyperspeed. So, okay. So I guess a little bit of a preview. Next week on Monday, for our Monday actual play live stream episode, we're going to be starting a kind of like a session 0 for a quick Delta Green game that Brent is going to be running. Those of you that didn't notice, he's wearing his Delta Green Barbie shirt because that was the collaboration no one expected.
Delta Green Barbie Oppenheimer crossover shirt. Yeah. I absolutely loved it when I saw it.
What was it? Is it Barbenheimer? Is that what they?
Barbenheimer, yeah.
Barbenheimer,
so this is
yeah.
De Barbenheimer. It turns German.
De Barbenheimer, yeah. And they're great. You can get them off the Arc Dream website. On the back, they say, "Do you ever think about death?" Which I think is hilarious. So yeah.
So Brent, lead us a little bit and tell us what's going to be happening on Monday.
So on Monday, what we're going to do is we're going to select characters because there's a ton of pre-gen characters out there for Delta Green. And I feel like you can probably find something that's pretty close to what you want to play. We'll come up with their names. You can change the names or use the names on the character sheets. We'll kind of talk about their bonds and relationships, which will be used during the one shot, but they won't be used like you would in a campaign. But I want them there because I want to kind of illustrate the rules for using the relationships and kind of discuss what you would do after the end of the one shot. The end of the one shot is a fairly popular published one shot that Arc Dream I think has on their website called Last Thing Last. So don't look at that, guys. But those of you who are curious, you can look at it ahead of time. So yeah.
Yeah. And I think the disclaimer we always have to put is that if you plan on being a player for any of these games, obviously spoilers ahead. So looking at it or watching our actual play will probably reveal parts of the game. Just so you know.
And if you have, and if you're a player and you have, pretend like you don't know what you're doing.
Yeah, I have not. You said it was Last
Things Last.
I have not read or played Last Things Last. So.
I don't think I have either because I think I've only played Delta Green with you, Brent.
Yeah, the one that Mike run.
Yeah, I read one
with the Traveler.
Yep.
Spoilers.
Yeah, spoilers if anybody can pick out which Delta Green game we ran. So it was an old one. So I think we're really excited to jump into a different genre. We are going to get a little bit spooky. So also, if you guys have made it to the end of this part of the episode and you're willing to offer us suggestions on what you feel is the best Halloween themed one shot, any system, doesn't matter. Unless it's a system, obviously, we can't procure. I mean, if we can't get it, then who cares?
Or if it's in a different language.
Oh yeah, if it's in different language. Well, even though I could probably piece something together with Google Translate.
You are willing to take on more work than I think maybe.
That is an extraordinary amount of work. Yeah, that's an extraordinary amount of work.
I'm going to translate this 60-page document.
I didn't know they had role-playing games in Sanskrit.
Well, machine translations don't do a great job, is all I can say. But at least I can at least take a look and see how close it gets. And certain languages are probably going to be a little easier for Google to be more accurate than others. Interesting
thing. This is an aside from that, but interesting thing I note about the Wet Wired book that I got. Their numbering is wrong. In one of the character sections, they have like 6 things your character could do. The first couple have 1 through 6, and then the last couple have 7 through 12. So they screwed up their numbering layout. So like the Street Samurai has 1 through 6, and then like below that is the Phys Ad or something like that, and it has 7 through 12. So they continued the numbering instead of making the charts right, which is funny because it's just a typo that I usually don't notice typos.
It's okay. I mean, is it a typo? Maybe just Phys Ads are better than Techno Ronins.
No, it's
No,
it's
'cause
100% a typo.
It's 100% a typo because they don't have the first 6 options. I was like, wait, what am I missing? What do you roll on this chart? And I was trying to figure it out, and then I was like, oh,
Yeah, somebody was using the outline feature, and
It's just a
it
mistake.
continued through the hard return instead of
Click
stopping.
and drag.
Yeah,
Exact- yeah.
exactly. It was just a funny. I'm not knocking it because like I could see me doing that in a published piece of material, hating my life for the rest of forever. It was just funny because I usually don't notice too.
Yeah.
But I was just trying to figure it out. I was like, what dice do you roll on? Like, how do I get only a result of 7 through 12? And I was trying to figure out like what dice I would roll for that.
D6 plus 6 for whatever reason. So yeah. So we look forward to it. Come and check us out on Monday if you want to live stream with us. We'll probably be looking for the comments a little bit more closely than when we're doing our actual plays because we're not actually playing. Well, maybe we are. I don't know. Okay, we'll see how Monday goes. And then of course, yeah. So stop by, hang out, do something.
There's some spooky stories, Delta Green cult things ahead.
Yeah. So do you guys want to call that good, and then we'll wrap it up?
Yeah.
Indeed. We talked about my shirt. I'm good with it.
So
Shirt
Jeff,
is awesome.
do you want to tell people how they can contact us so they can compliment Brent's shirt?
Yes. You can find us at Rollwise on Facebook, YouTube, Threads, and Twitter. And if you want to email us, it's rollwiseguys@gmail.com.
Thank you, Jeff. And with that, as always, thank you, everybody, for watching. If you made it this far, thank you if you haven't made it this far, although you'll never hear it. And as always, roll well and roll wise and be safe out there. Thank you, everybody.
Good night.